Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. This is Amy at GrowthZone and Chamber Master here live in Minnesota. We are pleased today to have Amanda Kaiser from Smooth the Path with us. She has an excellent presentation put together. Of course, there will be 1 hour of CAE credit with those certificates emailed after the webinar to those that attended the live webinar. So if you are logged on and working on getting CAE credit, make sure that you stay with us the whole time. Additionally, we will be sending a recording out. Everybody that registered, regardless of whether or not they attended, will receive a link to the recording. We are in hopes that we will have that out this afternoon, but be sure to keep your eye out. It will definitely be in your inbox in the next 24 hours. I'm going to take a minute now and introduce Amanda, our speaker. As I said, it's Amanda Kaiser from Smooth the Path. She is a qualitative member researcher. She has conducted over 373 in-depth interviews with members, and that works out to 9 straight weeks of listening to members' thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And as membership experts and pros, you know that listening to members for that long is quite a commitment. So one thing is apparent from those comments, from the members' comments, you never get a second chance to make a great first impression. Great first impressions increase member engagement, and Amanda's going to share the brain science behind new member engagement, as well as effective new ways to engage new members early in order to engage them for life. Feel free to share facts from this presentation on Twitter, where you can find Amanda at Smooth the Path. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Amanda, and everybody enjoy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. Hello and welcome, everyone. I was just taking a spin through the attendee registration list and looking at all of you and your organizations and where you are from. And today we have folks representing chambers as well as trade and professional associations from all over the world. I'm super psyched that you are here. I've got some really great stuff with you today. And I know that we're all virtual, but I'd like to give a couple of special shout outs. So there's somebody here who's coming from very, very far away. It's the Sydney Hills Business Chamber. And yes, if you're wondering, that is Sydney, Australia. So good on you, mate. And thanks for joining us at 4 a.m. in the morning, which is actually, I always get a kick out of the international dateline, right? Because that's 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. We also have a representative here from the New Hampshire Builders Association. And I'm giving a special shout out to New Hampshire because I grew up in the great state of New Hampshire. I live out of state now, but I consider myself a displaced New Englander. So welcome, New Hampshire. And another big hello to the Wolfboro Area Chamber. That was my hometown in New Hampshire. I got to tell you that when people are giving shout outs, they never, ever mention New Hampshire. So I'm super excited I get the opportunity to do that. I also saw a bunch of chambers signing on from Ireland, so hello to you too, and hello to everybody. I want to say whether you're from Australia, Ireland, Greece, Canada, the United States, or beyond, thank you so much for joining us today. I am thrilled you are here to talk about new member engagement because new member engagement is critically important to the health of your organization. We don't focus enough on it, so we're going to talk about that quite a bit. Okay. So let's talk about, let's start by diving into the minds of our members. And what I want to do is I'm going to share some member stories with you, but have you really imagine that you are a new member. So I want you to sit there and imagine you are a brand new member. I want you to imagine that you are a new employee and that you have just started with your organization. You are new to your profession or industry. So you're new at so many things. You just signed up for a conference and you are going alone. There's nobody from your organization that's going to be going with you. You're going solo. The day comes and you fight traffic across town, or maybe you have to drive 2 hours to get there, or maybe you have to jump on a plane and spend all day traveling. However it is that you get there, you probably arrive a little bit fatigued. When you arrive at the venue, you look for signs leading you to the location of the conference, but you don't see any. And for a moment, you wonder if you're in the right place, or maybe you're not there on the right day. It's Thursday. Oh my gosh, what if the conference is tomorrow? But you know what? After poking around the hotel or the venue a little bit, you find registration. So you head up to registration, you stand in the registration line, and soon it's your turn. As you step to the desk, the person on the other side says, name. So you give your name and then you wait. She starts flipping through the badge box, but you're not there. So she tries another badge box. No luck either. She asks you to spell your name, which you do, and she tries again. And you start to wonder. You wonder if you're registered and what will happen if you're not, and if there was a mistake, and if your credit card number didn't go through. But then it's okay because she finds your badge. She hands it to you along with a program and looks at the next person in line. You're not sure where to go. So you step out of line and you start scanning the area. After a while, you see people heading down the hall, so you do too. Folks are heading to a meeting room, and as you enter that meeting room, you notice that is packed to the rafters with people. You take a quick look around, you see a small breakfast layout right by the door. You grab yourself a muffin and a juice, and you head right back out into the hall and sit down on a bench alone. With your muffin balanced on one knee and your program balanced on the other, you start to flip through the program. And with a sinking heart, you realize the program is like a foreign language. You circle a couple of things that sound promising, and then off you go. Now, as you sit there listening to speakers during the day, you notice a couple of things. Some presentations are wonderful, and some are not so good. But you also notice that everyone is using acronyms and special words and phrases that you have never heard of. But it seems like from the speakers to the audience alike, everybody else knows these terms. You don't know the language yet, and you're starting to feel a little bit behind and maybe even a little bit isolated. At the end of the day, it's been a really long day. All you want to do is flee, but a guilty voice starts. You know you should go to the reception, but you really don't want to. You're really not a joiner, but you're here at this conference. You should maybe see what it's all about. You should meet some new people. So with a sigh, you head to the reception area, and as you approach, you hear the din of voices coming from inside that room, and that's a little anxiety producing. So you step inside, locate the bar, order yourself a drink, grab it, turn around, and your heart sinks because everyone is talking to someone except for you. Now, how are you feeling? Maybe a little bit lonely, maybe really awkward. And this is one of those stories that I hear in the member research all the time. What I've hit here is all of those pain points that new members encounter every time they go to a chapter event or a networking event or a day long conference or a multi day conference. These are some of the things they encounter. Now, I want to switch hats here and think about us as hosts. So, when we're hosting these kinds of events, what could we have done to make this first time members experience much better? Take a second to think about that. How would you have changed the outcome of this? You might be thinking we could have welcomed them better. We could have helped connect them with others during the conference. We could have helped the attendee know where to go and what to expect. We could have changed up the reception so everybody has something to do besides small talk. So, what happens when you do stuff like this? Well, we get a really different experience from our members. So, right now, what I want you to do is imagine a different time, a different story. Imagine that you are, again, are a new member, but you are in the A through K line, right? You step forward, and the person on the other side of the registration desk says, "Hello, how was your trip?" And you say, "Fine." And they say, "Great. Is this your first time at the event?" You say, "Yes." And they say, "Fantastic. We have a ton of great programming just for you. Now, today is a really huge day of learning, and you'll need to get fueled up. So breakfast is in room B." They point to the left, and they say, "I hope you have a great day." As they hand you your badge and program, you think, "Wow, that was a nice welcome." And with a spring on your step, you head towards room B. When you get there, you notice that the room is packed to the rafters. You see the continental breakfast just inside the door, but you take some time and you scan the room. And there, towards the back of the room, you see the real breakfast. You head back there and you grab your plate and you fill it with eggs and potatoes, and you spend some time at the coffee and tea bar making yourself a really nice coffee, and then you scan the room. And every seat is taken except for a table in the way back has two open seats. So you head over there and you hover behind one of those empty seats and you say, "Is this seat taken?" And somebody says, "Yeah, absolutely. Please join us." So you sit down and you start eating. Someone asks if this is your first time at the event, and you said yes. And you say, "You know what? I didn't look at the program before I left home. What's good?" And soon everyone around the table is giving you advice on the topics and speakers and the things you should do and what to expect from this event. This It's time for the first presentation, so you finish your breakfast and you head off for a day of learning. Now you're in these sessions and you sit there listening to the speakers and you notice a few things. Some of the presentations are great and some are not so good. You also notice that everyone is using acronyms and special words and phrases you have never heard of. But it seems like the speakers in the audience that know all of these terms. But that's okay because you're here to learn. During the day, you meet people at breaks and the lunches, and everyone seems so friendly. Maybe it's because you're smiling so much. It seems like you're never at a loss for somebody to talk to. At the end of the day, you know there's a reception that you can go to. Now, normally you're not a joiner, but everybody has been so nice. Maybe it'll be fun. So you head to the reception area, and as you approach, you hear a din of voices from inside of the room, which is really a little anxiety producing. You step inside, locate the bar, order yourself a drink, grab it, turn around, and now you see a few familiar faces. You head on over and you continue your conversation. So, both of these members are first timers. They're new to their organization, they are new to your organization, they are new to the profession, new to the industry. They're pretty much the same. They're similar in so many ways, but they had entirely different experiences. Why? What caused that difference? Well, if you're thinking it was the person that welcomed them at registration, you would be right. So this is a really fascinating thing that I learned in the research. Members decide in just a few seconds that the first few seconds they're at an event if it's going to be a good event for them. So they decide again in the first few seconds that they're at an event if it's going to be a good event for them, which means that the decision happens not when they're networking and not when they're listening to a speaker. It happens at registration. Most of us think about registration as a transaction. The attendee gives me their name and I give them a name tag. But for members, it's more than a transaction. They want, no, no, what? They need registration to be a welcoming experience. When members are warmly welcomed, they'll go on to make a great event for themselves. And this isn't just true for attendees and events, it's true for new members and membership as well. When you warmly welcome a member, there's a better chance that they're going to make membership great for themselves. And why is that? Well, it's all because of first impressions. Our brains are first impression collecting machines. Let's demonstrate this. I want you to think of a memorable time when you had a very strong first impression or first experience. It can be positive or negative, and it can be an interaction with any company, organization, brand, industry, product. Don't think about this necessarily about a first impression you had in your work life. It could be in your personal life as well. So I want you to think about your very powerful first impression. When I give this presentation in person, I'll ask people to volunteer a few words about where they were when they were thinking of their first impression story. And people often say that their first impression story, what they were thinking about was maybe a date with like a first date with their spouse, or the first day of college, or walking into an Apple store, or starting a new job, or going to a dentist, right? So, think about that. They can be positive or negative stories. If you've ever gone to the doctor and you step up to the receptionist and she doesn't smile at you or even look at you, she just asks you for your cards, and she asks you some questions and she never looks up and never smiles. That happened to me one time and I was thinking, oh my gosh, what is in my patient file? I thought I was here for a hangnail, but maybe it's a terrible sign that my arm's going to pop off. These first impressions, they illogically sometimes, feed into so much of our feelings. Now, science has found that first impressions are critically important. Why? Well, because that first impression flavors the rest of your interaction with that company or organization or brand or person or product. So if you go back to your first impression story, you may be thinking about, yeah, you know what? I had that first impression and maybe it did. It colored the way I think about that group or person or brand or place or thing. So I'm going to tell you my first impression story because I think it's kind of indicative. Now, it's completely irrational, and I am going to own that, right? About a year ago, I was asked to go speak at ASAE's Great Ideas. It's their conference on innovation for member organizations. And my dad lives in St. Augustine. The conference is going to be in Orlando. I wanted to visit with my dad after the conference, so I flew into St. Augustine and I rented a car. And the very next morning, I drove all the way down to Orlando. Now, I am dressed in a suit and I am heading west away from the beaches, and I pull up to the toll booth, and this toll taker leans out and takes my toll and looks at me and he says, "I can tell you are going to the beach." And that just tickled me so much because, again, I'm in my suit and I'm heading away from the beaches. And in my mind, as I'm pulling away from the toll booth, I'm thinking, oh, wow, Florida must be an amazing state if the toll takers joke with you. And I went on to have a wonderful time in Florida. Everywhere I went, it was fabulous. The conference was fabulous. The visit with my dad was fabulous. Florida was wonderful. First impressions are important. That's the power of first impressions. Now, we're going to dive into the science behind first impressions, but first, I have a question for you. Let me see if I can launch this poll. Okay, in just a minute, you should see a poll. And I want you to go in there and answer. So, how long does it take to make a first impression? Select one of the following. Is it 3 seconds, 30 seconds, or 3 minutes? Go ahead. Take just a second more, 2 seconds more to go ahead and select your answers. 3 seconds, 30 seconds, or 3 minutes. All right, I'm going to close out the poll in just a second here, and let's look at the results. Okay, so if you said 3 seconds, so about 80% of you said 3 seconds, 21% of you said 30 seconds, and none of you said 3 minutes. You are right, absolutely. So let's go back to, okay, so brain science shows, and most of you are right, and the other 20% of you are very, very close. Brain science shows that we only have 3 seconds to make a first impression. So there's this really interesting research study out there that says that people size up other people in just 3 seconds. So in this very quick 3-second period, we make a snap decision and we judge how likable the other person is, how smart they are, and what kind of leader they are likely to be. So imagine this. Imagine you are on a sidewalk and you are walking toward me and I am walking toward you, and we stop and say hi, and you invite me in for coffee, and we sit down and we have coffee for 45 minutes. That first 3 seconds made all of the difference in the world. Now, if you were to find out during our coffee talk that I was different than you thought I was in the first 3 seconds, it is hard to move away from your first impression experience. So first impressions are super, super important. They color the thoughts about the person, a group of people, the business, the organization for all of the subsequent interactions. And knowing this bias, businesses everywhere are now racing around to make great first impressions. In fact, all sorts of industries are doing this by focusing on their customers or their members' first experience. Now, the master of first impressions and first experiences is Disney. They create first impressions every single step of your adventure. They don't wait until you are in the park. They start providing great first experiences right after they book. They'll send really helpful emails, even if it's 6 months out. They mail stuff to your house. They send you brochures. They get you really excited about going. Once you fly there, they'll pick you up from the airport and they'll get your luggage directly to your room, and they make that so wonderful. When you walk into your resort, every single resort is uniquely decorated. You know you are like no other place in the world. And then the day comes and it's time to actually get from your hotel to the resort, and the transportation is amazing, right? Monorail, boats, buses. I've heard that they're working on a gondola system. So much fun, and you haven't even gotten into the park. Now, you might be thinking, oh boy, Amanda, this is nice for you to say that about a multi-billion-dollar company, but what about a tiny organization? So small organizations are making really great first impressions too. I want you to think about your favorite mom and pop restaurant. Now, the next time you are there for a nice dinner, notice how they do what they do. In fact, this is really some great homework. It's something that I try to do all the time. As you experience restaurants and stores and parks and hotels and websites, everything, notice your first impression and take note of what you liked and what you didn't like. Because you're going to find some things out there that you're experiencing in your life that you can adapt to your member organization. This is really going to help you create great first impressions for your members. Okay, We are going to now switch gears and talk about another trend. I want you to imagine that I have a lot of money. Now, I don't have a lot of money, so I want you to imagine that I do. And my question for you is, would you like me to buy you a dream vacation or a gift? So imagine now, imagine your dream vacation. Where have you always wanted to go? Is it some beautiful tropical island, hot and sunny and lovely? Do you want to go on an adventure vacation? Are you thinking that you want to go to Antarctica, or you want to go to the Galapagos, or you want to go to Europe? Are you thinking about a ski vacation, a biking vacation? Are you thinking about something relaxing? Just put your mind into your dream vacation. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, I can buy you your dream vacation. Not really, but imagine I can buy you your dream vacation, or I can buy you a gift for the same amount of money. Now, not a monetary gift. I can buy you a thing. How many of you would pick a dream vacation, and how many of you can pick a gift? I can't see you raise your hands, but I am going to hazard a guess that most of you picked dream vacation. Now, I wasn't doing this in the 80s, but I suspect that, or I believe that society is going through this massive shift. You may have your heart set on a new Tesla, and that's totally fine. But if you said dream vacation, that's what most people say when I am doing this presentation face to face. So what's going on behind here? I think that what we're seeing is we're seeing a societal shift away from things to experiences. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you have ever been to a yotel, it's Yotel, yotel. There's one in New York City, and Yotel's claim to fame is it is an economy hotel, and it's run by robots, right? So this is the robot that greets you when you walk in the door. It's called the Yobot. And what the Yobot does is you come in the door and you go to a kiosk and you actually check yourself into the room. If your room is ready, the kiosk will give you a key. If your room is not ready, it'll direct you over to the Yobot. The Yobot stands at attention, and when you are ready, the Yobot will take your suitcase and it will slide your suitcase into one of those drawers, and it will stand guard for you in front of those drawers so nobody can take your suitcase. And you can then head out for a day of adventure in Manhattan. So the most amazing thing is that I stood there along with a whole bunch of other people for about a half an hour watching the Yobot do its thing. And whenever anybody would bring over their suitcase, we got super excited because the robot would leap into action, grab the suitcase and stash it. And it was such a cool thing to see, which is amazing, right? Because here we are in New York City and we're watching a robot, right? So Yotel is optimizing for experiences. It's amazing, right? And this is not the only place we're seeing this. So I want to bring a couple of micro trends to you right now and ask you what they have in common. So you might have heard of the tiny house trend. It's houses less than 800 square feet. I think that's kind of amazing. People are living in houses that are less than 800 square feet. Minimalism. If you've heard of the minimalism movement, it is reducing all of your possessions down to the minimum. Less possessions, a lot less stuff. Project 333. So a lot of people have heard of tiny houses and minimalism, but maybe not Project 333. Project 333 is having 33 items of clothing for each of the 3 seasons. That includes jewelry and shoes, ladies. Amazing kind of thing. So you have only 33 items of clothing that you can mix and match per season for 3 seasons. So what's common about all of them? Think about that for a second. Why are people jumping on these trends? If you're thinking to simplify, yeah, absolutely. If you're thinking to spend less money, yes, absolutely. If you're thinking to spend less money and simplify to make more time, absolutely. So I am not doing any of these things. I live in a tiny house, not in a tiny house. I live in a small house. My house is about 1,300 square feet. It is not a tiny house. I don't practice minimalism, and I don't do Project 333. I guess I probably do Project 888, right? But I find affinity with this. People are cutting down their expenses and management of items to find more freedom so that we can have more experiences. I think as a society, we are all moving towards experiences, right? I look at my friends and I see families allocating far more of their household budget to experiences versus stuff. We're buying less toys, but we're going to more museums. We're going on more trips. We're having more great adventures. Overall, we're having more experiences. We're optimizing our lives for experiences. And this is an interesting thing. What we become accustomed to in our personal lives, we can come to expect in our professional lives. So I predict two big trends for membership. The first trend is that members need us to provide great first impressions. They need that. And second is members want great first experiences. Those great first experiences pave the way for later engagement and retention. If we don't start leaping on these trends now, there's going to be some significant problems for our chambers and associations. So what's next? Or where am I getting this from? Let's dive into that. So, as Amy said, I am a qualitative member researcher. I have conducted over 373 member interviews. I think I'm actually up to about 390 member interviews right now. If you do the math, that's about 8 straight weeks of listening to members. I have conducted 26 research projects for organizations, especially membership organizations or all membership organizations of various sizes, types, industries, and professions, really small organizations to really giant organizations. And organizations that are member organizations, they're united by that, but their membership is very, very different. So this is where I'm pulling all of this information from. If you hear me say from the research, this is the research that I am talking about. Okay, so let's get back to member engagement. Why do we care about member engagement? Well, and why should we care especially about new member engagement? One of the things that I noticed in the research early on is new members. When new members do not engage, they get mad. And this is a really, really dangerous thing for our member organizations. The reason why they get mad is because they feel like they've made a mistake. They've committed their time, they've spent money, and with that kind of investment, they didn't get any value. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting thing because when we think about this, we might not realize that they get mad. Why do they get mad? Well, so if you have a 7-year member that doesn't renew, they still might love the association. They receive value, they had a great experience for many years, but when a 1-year member doesn't renew, they are mad. When those folks won't recommend the association. They're not a good candidate for word of mouth. In fact, they are working against you. So if an employee, if a colleague, if their department comes to them and says, "Hey, we want to be a member of this association," they're going to say no. Whereas a lapsed 7-year member is going to say yes. These folks are, somewhat volatile. We got to engage them because, first of all, you got to engage them so that they stay, engaged members. But second, if we don't engage them, they're mad and they're actually working against you. Again, the reason why they're angry is because they assumed that they made a mistake in joining, and nobody likes to feel like they made a mistake, and we don't want them to get mad. So, why don't new members engage? Well, one reason why is because they view process, the join process, far differently than we do. Okay, so this is our view of the join process of the first year. As membership professionals, we tend to think about membership as a year-long cycle. The cycle starts when a member becomes a member, and then we embark upon trying to engage them. So many associations send a list of benefits. Some associations add new members to the list, and then these new members just start getting the emails that every other member gets. Some associations send new members special new member emails. Some new associations or member organizations call new members, and so we try to engage them. And months or a year elapse, and during that time, we treat those new members like all members. They get a lot of the same communications, maybe a few special communications. And then finally, before the end of the year, we start the renewal process, which is usually a set of emails or mail communications designed to remind them to renew. And this is a bit of a problem because there's this key theme running through the research that I do, and that is members don't perceive that first year as a year-long cycle at all, right? In a year, it doesn't take a year for them to join, engage, and renew. they actually perceive it in a very different way than we perceive membership. And so let's cue that up and take a look at what's going there. So this is what that joining looks like to new members. It's not a year-long process. Instead, joining, engaging, and renewing, the decision to renew anyway, happens all at the same time. We don't have 365 days. We have 3 days to 3 weeks, maybe 3 months, but it's far less the case. Generally, within 3 days to 3 weeks, new members join and they make the decision to engage. And if that goes well, they make the decision to renew. That's amazing, right? Some members make the decision to engage and renew in the first 3 days of membership. Some members make the decision to engage and renew in the first 3 weeks of membership. Okay, so we have roughly 3 days to 3 weeks to engage members. That's probably less than you thought. It was less than I thought before I started doing the research. Okay, let's dive into that. Let's look at the actual path people are taking. They join, a new member joins. In 3 days to 3 weeks, they might ignore the association or member organization or chamber, and then you are done. We're going to talk about this a little later on in the webinar. Why would somebody join and ignore? We're going to talk about that. The other route they can take is they join, and then within the first 3 days to the first 3 weeks, they test engagement. They might try a benefit. They might call you. They might email you. They might go to an event. They might read one of your articles. They might read one of your emails. If they like it, they will engage again. If they don't like it, they will start ignoring you, and then you've lost them. If they like it and they engage again, they will decide after that first or second engagement in something that you've provided that they're going to renew. They decide right then. That decision to renew is really, really early. It's stunning, isn't it? It's stunning for me. Every time I say it, I can't get over it. Okay, so um, what do we do? How do we get them not to ignore us? How do we get them to engage? How do we get them to not walk away? Okay, so really it all comes down to value and experience, but I want you to think about value and experience in a really different way. This is how our members are thinking about it. Put ourselves in our members' shoes and think about the way they're thinking about it. Okay, so the first question they are asking themselves, and it might be a very conscious question or an unconscious question, is every time they think about your member organization, they're asking this question, and that is, can you solve my problem? Do you have the solution for the problem that I am having right now? Now, the good news is most member organizations do have the solution that new members are having right now. Generally, we've had a lot of new members, tons of new members before them, and we know what their problems are. We know what their problems are by career stage. We know what their problems are by company demographic. We know what their problems are by company stage, whether they're a new company or a long-time company, whether they're a new person in their career, long-time person, whether they are an individual contributor, a manager, or maybe they own the company or they're the president and CEO. And so since we have had so many other new members before, new members tend to have the same problems. They have the problems that the people that came before them have. These problems are easy to articulate, they are easy to define, and they are easy to solve. We likely have been solving their problems quite a bit. So what you have to do is you just have to do some extra work to target this group separately with the right message, the right solution, and solve the right problems. So signing them up for the emails that everybody's getting might not work, but if you can send them emails to solve their problem very quickly, that might work. So some examples of this would be like just a simple email, hey, welcome new members, so happy that you have joined us. There is an article, it's only about a 4-minute read, that most new members just love. Here is the link. They look at the title of your article, they love it, they click in, they read for 4 minutes, boom, they're engaged. You have solved their problem in just 4 minutes. Super, super exciting to new members. Okay, so one question they're asking is, can you solve my problem? The second question that they are asking is, am I part of this club? This is more of an unconscious question, but they are assessing this every single minute. Do I fit in? do people like me join an organization like this, right? Like I said, this is usually not an explicit question, it's a subconscious question. Okay, so they're kind of feeling around for two different things when they ask, am I part of this club? They are observing things like, how welcome do I feel? Are people friendly? Did they welcome me? Are they going to be accepting of me? Do Are people members who I aspire to know or be like or be with? How are they? Are they polished and professional? How approachable are the other members of the association? Are they cliquey? Are they insular? Can I get in there? Are they welcoming, friendly, not? They're assessing all of this stuff. I've heard some really interesting stories. I've heard stories about people going to chapter meetings. They drive all the way across town. They walk in. They walk down the hall. They kind of take a pass by the door, look in, and what they see at the front of the room is a whole bunch of people in a teeny little knot talking to themselves, and they keep on walking and head back to their car and walk away. Right? So they're assessing, am I part of this club? They're also looking at the organization's materials. They're looking at your websites, your signs, your brochures, your emails, your design, your logo, and they're saying, is this organization as professional as me? Am I proud to be a member? Am I proud to be a member? Right? Okay, so with this in mind, we're asking these two questions. Can you solve my problem? Am I a part of this club? And I'm going to give you three ways to engage new members early so that you can engage them for life. And that's it, right? If we can just engage those new members early, we do engage them for life. Because like my very first story that I told you, if you can engage them early, if you can pave that way for them, then they will make their membership good for themselves. They will make their conference good for themselves. The networking event, they'll make it great for themselves if you can just help them engage that very first time. Okay, so let's talk about strategy number one. Learn if you have a value trigger point. So this is one of the most powerful concepts that I have taken from the member research. A lot of member organizations have what I call a value trigger point. Simply, this is the point at which the member realizes the value of their membership or the value of the organization early in their membership. Let me tell you how I arrive at this. In interviews, I'll ask, when did you realize the value of the organization? And members will answer one of two ways. They'll say, oh, yes, it was at the annual conference. I walked into the annual conference and somebody there from the board was there and they welcomed me and they shook my hand and they smiled at me and talked to me for a few minutes and it was amazing. And you know what? The annual conference was wonderful. But it might not be the annual conference for you. It might be a webinar. It might be a networking event. It might be something else. Every organization's value trigger point is different. Now, the other answer that I get from members is they might say, well, no, I suppose that I just realized the value of the organization over time. It grew on me. Okay, so this is really interesting. So members that answer like the first group with a enthusiastic, oh yes, I remember exactly when I realized the value, those organizations have a value trigger point. The organizations with members like the second group who say, oh, it just grew on me, do not have a value trigger point. Now, why is this important? Well, because organizations with a value trigger point have a higher level of engagement for the life of their membership. So the sooner we can have a member have that value trigger point or experience that value trigger point, the better. And this means you want to discover if you have a value trigger point or not. Now, not every organization has a value trigger point, and not every organization has the same value trigger point. Like I said, for some it's a conference, for some it is a phone call to members from the staff, for some it is a webinar, for some it is a networking event, for some it is research, for some it is an article. And usually organizations tend to coalesce around one. Now, if you have a value trigger point, you can start to leverage it. You might not even know that you have one, but as soon as you know that you have one, you can make it the gateway to solve your members' next problem. And you can also make sure that every single one of your members gets through the value trigger point. So if your value trigger point is a conference, that might be a problem because only 10% of your members can make it to the conference. So how do you get that conference-like value into the hands of more of your members? Now, if you do not have a value trigger point, you can develop one. For those of you who might want to develop one, here are some things to keep in mind. There are two flavors of value trigger points. One is content focused, and the other one is high touch focused. If your new members are very much like all of your other new members, they are new to the industry, they are new to the profession, they are starting a business, something like that, you can probably give them a content focused one, meaning you know what their problem is and you can solve it for them and deliver those solutions in an easy to interact with way. If your new members are very unalike, right, you can deliver a very high touch focused value trigger point. So your new members, some of them are long time in the industry, some of them are very new to the profession in their career, some of them are from big organizations, some are from very small organizations, and they are so unalike that none of their problems overlapped with any of the other ones. Then that means that you probably are hopping on the phone with them or sending them very targeted emails and trying to get value into their hands very, very quickly. Okay, so I am going to leap now into another poll, and let's talk about our strategy number two. So in just a second, you should see poll number two, which is what is the primary way you communicate with members? So jump on there. What is the primary way you communicate with your members? Is it email, snail mail, phone, social media, or do you do that on your website or in your online community? Okay, I'm seeing a ton of things come through here, and keep voting. But right now we're at about 90% email, 0% snail mail. What? 1% snail mail. Okay, so somebody's doing snail mail. Fantastic. If I'd asked you this 10 years ago, that the ratio probably would have changed. 5% phone. And then social media and through the website are fairly low, just a couple of percent. So really, really interesting. Email. Okay, great. Email is the number one way most of us are communicating with our members. Now, remember what I said earlier, right? Why would somebody join and then within 3 days or 3 months just immediately ignore the association? Why, or your member organization or your chamber? Why do people do that? I used to be the director of marketing for an association, and this is so infuriating. They plunk down their money, and then we never hear from them again. They don't read in emails. They certainly don't go to the conference. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Why would somebody do that? It is entirely because of email, right? Okay, so when I do this presentation in person, I ask a lot of times how many emails are in your inbox, and people tell me. So usually in the audience, there's one person that is at inbox zero, which I find amazing. And there's usually somebody that has an inbox with about 48,000 emails in it. But most of us have somewhere between 100 and 200 emails in our inbox. Now, some of these are junk and some of these take a really thoughtful response. But imagine if every email took 3 minutes to process, how much time that takes. Email is a gigantic problem for most professionals, and we feel good when we can get rid of email. So this is what's going on in our members' minds, right? They need to be engaged in the first 3 emails. If they get email, so they're going to read your first 3 emails that you send to them. And if they get the first email and it doesn't seem to apply to them, they'll say, and they'll throw it away and they'll wait for the next email. The next email gets to them, they read it, and it doesn't apply to them, they throw it away. The last email gets to them, it doesn't seem to apply to them, you're done. They start ignoring emails from you. This is your primary channel to reach new members, and they're now ignoring them. Super big danger for us. We have only 3 emails to capture their attention, so we've got to make these 3 emails count. So let's talk about a first 3 email plan. You want to let your members know, sorry, not your email. You want to let your members know that you know what their problem is. You want to articulate the problems that they are having right now in their language and their words. You want to solve that problem for them. Ideally, it's an easy solve. Here is a 4-minute article. Here is a 3-minute video. Quick solutions to their problems. You also want to connect them to your value trigger point. If you have, a lot of very unhomogeneous members, you might want to use one of your first 3 emails to schedule a call with a staff person to make sure that member gets access to what they need. Okay, so that's your first three email plan. Really email. I couldn't, stress it enough. The first three emails to new members are so, 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 so key. Okay, let's jump into strategy number three. Strategy number three for engaging your new members super early is to curate networking. Okay, so this is a really interesting thing that I heard over and over and over and over and over again in the research, and that is traditional networking, the kind of networking we do, the traditional receptions that we host are ridiculously painful for new members. Okay? New members have said to me that receptions make them feel like they are going some new members say that they receptions make them feel like they are going to throw up. That they dodge them, they won't go, they go and they feel so incredibly awkward. It's amazing, right? Now, this is funny because if you've got a board, your board is saying receptions are the best things that ever happened to them, but they're in a very different place. Your board members know everybody. It's so much fun for them to see, all of their old friends, all of the acquaintances, all of the friendly faces. But for new members, it is not like that at all. It is torture for most people unless you are the couple of percent that are extroverts. Okay, now the other problem is that getting any value out of a networking event requires a lot of luck for most people. There's actually another research study that actually proved this out. For example, most of us are working on projects that nobody else in our organization is working on, or has even ever worked on. Completely new, maybe a completely new technology project. We're the only ones doing that in our organization, or maybe we're the only ones like us in our organization. We are the only ones who are a business relationship manager. We are the only ones who are the marketer. We are the only ones who are the director of finance. We're the only ones. And so when we go to a chapter meeting or we go to a networking event through a chamber, or we go to like a training course or a conference, we hope that we're going to meet people who are like us. They're thinking about what we're thinking about. They're thinking the way we think. They're having the same problems as we're having. They're doing the same kinds of projects. Maybe they've completed that project, but chances are they're not going to meet that person. Traditional networking and receptions just don't help us meet the right people. Okay, so what can we do? We can create a buddy system, and I'm seeing this more and more and more. I speak at a lot of industry events, and this whole buddy system thing, it is new and it is flourishing. People are getting paired up with a longtime attendee before they ever go to an event, and that's fabulous. That longtime attendee is calling them beforehand, and they're giving them a sense of what to expect and what to wear and what to do. And when they get there, the buddy is there to welcome them, and then that buddy can introduce them to a couple of people. And not that they spend the entire conference or the entire reception with their buddy, but it is just enough to launch them out there. Think about this in your program. It's not just about for events, because not everybody goes to an event, but mentoring programs work the same way, right? You could do, or for events, you could do a pre-event online Zoom meeting. So people are kind of getting a quick orientation. They're seeing other people so that when they actually see each other face to face, they already have some friendly faces. Now, if you can't do something as customized or as high touch as a buddy or mentor program, some organizations are having a lot of luck with a new member or new attendee organization where these new members or new attendees get to meet each other. Sometimes this is face to face, but more and more I'm actually even seeing this online. Zoom is an amazing product. You can do some really cool things with that. Okay, so we talked about three strategies for engaging your new members fast so that you engage them for life. I'm going to give you three action items here because we talked about a lot of things. And I want you to go back to your office and just give you some tangible things you can start working on now. The first thing is write your first email that new members will receive. It could be that your system actually sends them a new email before you even know that your members are getting a new email. It's worth resurrecting that and seeing what it says. Is it welcoming? Does it say what you want it to say? Is it in the tone, using the graphics that you want it to be in? So grab that first new member email and take a look at it. If you don't have one, write one. Learn if you have a value trigger point. If you have a value trigger point, fantastic. Start leveraging that. If you do not have a value trigger point, you can invent one. And also, I have created a companion ebook of this presentation. So if you like this presentation and you want to hear more examples about how member organizations are doing this, you can go onto my site. It's smooththepath.net under resources. Download the Feeling Exceptional New Member Experiences ebook for free. It's completely yours. Now, we are not done with the presentation. I have some more good stuff for you. And let's launch into that by launching this next poll. It's all related, but just a little tidbit before we head out. Okay, so you should be seeing a poll, and the poll says, do you have a new member onboarding plan? Select one of the following. Yes, we have had our plan for more than 4 years. Yes, we have had a plan for between 1 and 4 years. We are creating our plan right now. We want to create an onboarding plan. We do not have a new member onboarding plan yet. So I'd love you to go in, figure out which one is you, and start answering. Because I am very curious about this. I've done some research, and it seems like new member onboarding plans are fairly new to member organizations. And let me go ahead and just start reading off the responses. Actually, I think I can even share the results with you. So 18% said yes, we have had our plan for 4 more years, or more than 4 years. 30% said we've had a plan for 1 to 4 years. 25% said we're creating our plan now. 14% we said we want to create an onboarding plan, and 11% said we do not have a member onboarding plan. Okay, super great, because I have some news for you. I conducted the new member engagement study in collaboration with a quantitative research company called Dynamic Benchmarking. And what we found through this new member engagement study is that new member onboarding programs increase new member renewal rates by just about 10%. Now, it's not 10% across the board. This is an average. Some new member engagement or new member onboarding programs did a little less. We had some new member onboarding programs that did way more, 50% increase in new member renewal rates. I mean, just to even imagine 10%, do the math. If you could increase your new member renewal rates by 10% every year, what would that do to your numbers, right? It's amazing. So if you would like to dive into the data, if you already have a program and you want to make it more effective, or if you are planning your program, or if you don't have a program, but this is mildly interesting to you, I would really love it if you could join GrowthZone and me January 24th at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, as I reveal the results of this exciting new industry research study. You're going to learn all about new member onboarding programs. You're going to learn what works, what doesn't work. You are going to learn, how to revise your program, how to set up a new program. I have this whole step-by-step approach that works for all kinds of member organizations, large, small, local, state, regional, national, global. And stay tuned for the details. I hope to see you there. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand it back to Amy, and I think we're going to do a little bit of Q&A if there's time.
I am back. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, Amy. Yeah.
All right. If you have questions, go ahead and enter those into the question section of your dashboard there. And let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. They're all great, but we don't have time for all of them. And remember, you can get the ebook at smooththepath.net. So this question is, besides welcoming attendees to events, what are more ways that we can create a great first impression experience for new members?
Sure, absolutely. So, email is really key. And what I find a lot of member organizations doing is they start out with that really exceptional first member email. So a member joins, and automatically the system kicks off an email that is optimized for new members. And that that really kind of brings them in and lets them know that not only are we welcoming them and we're super happy that they're here, but we're also solving a problem for them. Here's that quick read. So email is super key. Depending on the kind of member organization you are, a phone call can be incredibly effective. In person can be really effective. There's really a lot of tactics to use aside from in person that organizations do. Some organizations do welcome webinars, some do welcome Zoom conference so that it's more live and people can interact with each other. And there's some best practices around this that we're going to be sharing in January. But yeah, if you want to play around with your email, if you want to play around with phone calls, those are some really good places to start in addition to those live in-person events.
Great. There are some other questions. They're all so great, and we're not going to have time to get to all of them. But this one caught my eye. Is it too late? So is it too late to follow up and get engagement from members?
Yeah, absolutely. No, so I'm assuming that the person who typed that question was thinking, okay, so I've got people who just renewed their 2-year members or 3-year members. What do I do? So likely, so actually, this is kind of a really interesting thing. If people are renewing year after year after year, and it appears to you, you look into your data, and it appears that they are not engaged because they're not going to events. They still might be getting what they need. And one interesting thing kind of played out of the research, and that was members don't like to engage more than they want to engage, or any less than they want to engage. And so there's kind of two dynamics. There are some members that are very happy reading your emails. They're happy reading your e-newsletter. They're happy browsing the site every once in a while, and that is of value to them. And if we try to push them to engage more and say, "Hey, join the board," yike, that's a huge step. They're not interested in engaging more than they want to engage. Some members, though, really want to engage more than they're currently engaging. They want to speak. They want to write articles. They want to share insight. They want to meet more people. They want to be a leader, and they bump up against barriers. All of these invisible barriers to actually engaging, and that's a problem too. The answer is maybe. Maybe you can engage those 2, 3, 4-year members more, and I would try it. But if you're getting some resistance, it's because they don't want to engage more than they want to engage. But some of those 2, 3, 4 or 5-year members do want to engage more. So yes, you can engage them.
Awesome. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We are going to answer a couple more questions. The website is smooththepath.net, and I know smooth can sometimes be a tricky word, and whether or not you put an E on the end of it, I always have to check. So it's SMOOTH, the net, or excuse me, the path.net, smooththepath.net. And the upcoming webinar is going to be January 24th when Amanda will join us again. Another question, well, there's been a few questions about this. Oh, and also, yes, there is a recording. We will be sending out the recording. In addition, we've decided to add a link to an onboarding schedule that we have here. So everybody that registered will receive a link to that. So you will be receiving the recording. A lot of questions about VTP, the value trigger point. If you don't have one, how do you create one? And so maybe you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So if you don't have one and you have no idea what it should be, spend as much time as you can with your members. So really good targets for this are your newest members. Don't ask them what they need from you. Instead, ask them what they are challenged with in their career right now. What's going on in their career? What are they challenged with? A lot of people are going to answer. You can actually ask the question two ways. What is your biggest personal challenge, or what is the biggest challenge for your organization? So I'd ask the question both ways. And then what you want to do is you want to then you want to develop the solution for them, right? So, and you want to dive as much into that as you possibly can. So, find out what is their challenge, how does it make them feel, why this feels like such a challenge, and all of that. Because, what you're going to find out is, or what I hear a lot is, our members are really lonely, or they're really unsure, or they're not feeling valued. And so, if you can develop the solution that makes them feel connected, or that makes them feel really valued, or that makes them feel, um, you know, uh, very confident, then that's great. Now, you can house this in a million different things. You can house it in an in person event, you can house it in a webinar, you can house it in an ebook or a piece of research or a white paper. However you decide to house it is up to you. But again, it's all about solving that new member's problem.
Great. Thank you so much for that. We are actually at the 1 hour mark, and I know that if anybody is crazy busy, it is membership professionals, so we're going to
Okay.
let you go. However, yes, the recording will be sent to everyone that registered, whether or not they actually attended or not, but thank you to those that are on with us now. The date for the next webinar with Amanda will be January 24th. Um, yes, we will be sending out email reminders about that one. The website is smooththepath.net. That's Amanda's website. You can look at our website at growthzone.com and chambermaster.com. We do have a number of resources on there to help you out. Everything from onboarding plans, a lot of information about the welcome email. And as a matter of fact, we were just featured in an article from ASAE about welcome emails. So hot topic, and glad that that was part of our webinar today. So yes, the recording will be available. We will be emailing CAE certificates, and I think that's about it. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much to Amanda for taking the time
Thank you,
to,
Amy. Hmm.
oh yeah, we are so appreciative, and we are getting so many comments on here that say, no question, just thank you, and shout out to Amanda. So um, I know that she enjoys hearing that. So thank you everyone for attending, and we will look forward to seeing you in January.